Everyone, welcome to the video about safety in the biology classroom. There are many different things that we need to do to make sure that you are remaining safe as you do labs in a biology classroom. Now, I know right now you might not be doing labs if you're 100% online or if you're a hybrid student due to safety concerns, but eventually we might get there, and in the meantime, it's still great information for you to be aware of. And if you see me doing a lab and not practicing safety, you can call me out. Safety first. Like I said, science is typically hands on. You might be doing lab activities where you're using either hazardous equipment or expensive equipment. We don't want to get hurt or waste equipment. Safety is our top priority, number one. To ensure a safe science classroom, there's a list of rules that have been developed to provide you and your peers in a lot of safety in the student safety contract. Now, a signed copy of your lab safety contract is required in order for you to participate in labs. And last week, you should have completed that in Canvas. It was a Google form that you should have been able to fill in with your name and your parent or guardian's name. General guidelines. Be responsible at all times in the lab setting. Don't do horseplay, practical jokes, or pranks. It's just not the place for it. Follow all instructions. Now, this is a typical class rule. I always expect you to follow instructions, but especially in the lab setting. Don't touch any lab equipment until you're asked to do so, especially in the biology classroom. That means don't go touch an animal's cage or get an animal out unless you're instructed to do so. No food, no drink, no gum, especially at the lab tables. Everyone is responsible for lab safety, not just me as your teacher, but each of you individually are responsible for safety in the lab. Now, when we are in the lab, you want to keep the room clean and organized. You don't want to have any tripping hazards or any sort of dangerous materials laying out when you need to be doing your lab. You need to let me know also if anything ever goes wrong, like accidents or unsafe conditions. I'll take care of helping to fix it. Washing your hands with soap and water after experiments is a great way to make sure that you don't bring chemicals or any sort of unwanted germs with you when you go on to your next class. So that's going to be something that I always ask you to do. Again, everybody is responsible for lab safety, not just me as your teacher. In a lab, if you're using any sort of chemicals, flames, or heat, you are going to be asked to wear goggles. I will provide those goggles to you. If a chemical did get in your eye, you have to wash your eye in the eye wash station for 15 minutes. That's a long time. So make sure that if we're doing something with chemicals, flame, or heat, that you're wearing your goggles. Sharp objects are something that you might eventually use, especially if we go to do dissection. Make sure that you're always pointing a knife or a blade or any other sharp object facing down when you're walking. And when you cut something, cut away from your fingers or anybody else's fingers or body parts. Electrical safety. Don't place a cord where somebody can trip over it. That can cause a lot of danger. Never use an electrical outlet or cord right next to water. So just be aware of that. You would not put a cord through running water or something like that. And then before we would leave the room, we would unplug lab equipment so that there couldn't be some sort of an electrical problem that could result in a fire. Animal safety. This is a big one in my classroom. Only handle living organisms with teacher permission. So do not ever come into the classroom and handle living organisms without first talking to me and getting my permission. Make sure you're treating these animals correctly, and definitely wash your hands after handling animals because of the germs that they might carry. If you're heating something, you're going to need to make sure that your hair is tied back and that any loose clothing you have is tied back or put away or potentially not even worn. You might need to wear a tight sleeve or a tight outfit to make sure that you're not going to have loose clothing catch on fire. You want to never ever look into a container that you're heating. If you do, that could boil over and splash into your eyes and really hurt you. Heated glassware and metal look the same whether they're hot or cold. So if you're using any sort of heat in a lab, make sure you use tongs or glove before touching anything that is made of glass or metal. Never leave a heat source unattended, especially if you have a Bunsen burner with a flame. You cannot just leave that there by itself. It could tip over and catch something on fire. Chemical safety. Read the labels on chemicals before you remove anything from its container. Never touch, taste, or smell any chemicals unless your teacher tells you to. Transfer them carefully. For your hands, if a chemical spills on your skin, you've got to let me know. You might have to wash your hand under the sink for 15 minutes to make sure that your skin is clear of any sort of hazardous material. If it spills on your body, you might have to do the same in the safety shower. When you're carrying glassware, make sure you do so carefully so that material is not spilling on you. If you have a plant in the lab, make sure you don't eat it. This is not lunchtime. We won't be having salad in the lab, so never put a plant from the lab in your mouth. And make sure that you do wash your hands after handling plants because they could have chemicals that could be dangerous to somebody who has sensitive skin. There are many different pieces of equipment in our lab classroom. There's a fire blanket, a fire extinguisher, a safety shower, an eye wash station, and I also have first aid materials. If you are a hybrid student, you've seen the location of these equipment. And if you're 100% online, I will let you know about where those pieces of equipment are if you return to school. If you have to use a fire extinguisher ever, and this goes for anybody at home or online, home online or in person in school, if you have to do it, remember the acronym PASS, PASS. Pull the pin, aim the hose at the base of the fire from 5 or 6 feet away, squeeze the handle, and sweep the hose back and forth across the fire. If you're on fire, stop, drop, and roll. This is probably familiar to you. Anyway, this is our entire video about lab safety. If you have any questions or concerns, always ask me. I'm happy to help. Thank you so much for listening.